Hello, in this tutorial we'll have a look at configuring expense types. So if we click on the menu, we can see that the expense function is turned on for this user type. And also I'm a system administrator, which gives me access to the system settings. So if I click on this, because the expense feature is enabled and I'm the administrator, I can now see expense types. Expense types simply allow you to capture costs in your business under different categories. The system comes pre-configured with a number of very simple expense types. Please feel free to edit these. You can delete them, rename them, and you can also add in other categories that will suit your particular type of business. If we just click on add, the first thing is if we type in the name of the expense, so this could be hardware. We have a decision: is it a per unit expense? You would use this for things like mileage. So if you click in here, you input the multiplier. So this means that the user would enter in X number of miles, and it'll use this value here to calculate the cost of the journey. And you can also just input per mile in here as a description. So you've got per unit expense, which is, or you've got, if this is turned off, I like to think of it as a lump sum expense. So something like accommodation or a purchase or maybe a meal or whatever. If you want to capture the receipt at the point where the user logs their expense, you can just enable this. It won't always be applicable to capture a receipt. A good example of that is for capturing mileage. You would turn this off. You can also enable notes. The notes facility simply allows the user, when they record an expense, to provide a little bit of information. A couple of interesting settings here. If you select personal card, this means that you're paying for it and you may wish to claim this expense back. You may have paid using the company cards, so if it's appropriate for this type of expense, you can enable this. Or maybe for purchases where you receive in a supplier invoice, then you can also enable this. What this will do is it'll prompt you to identify the supplier when you log the expense. If you're using this in a sophisticated way in conjunction with project planning, you may have effort-based tasks and you may have expense-based tasks, and you can simply flag whether an expense type, whether it's appropriate to log it against an effort-based task. So I set up all of this, and then when you go to record expenses, you click up here, you go to expenses, and as an example, if I just click on here, in this example it's not making any reference to projects or tasks, and that's because I haven't enabled projects, so the screen's nice and simple. So it's just asking me here for to select an expense type. So I can select accommodation, I enter in the amount, I can enter some details about it, and then if you're using this on your phone, you can take a photograph of the receipt, and then you can throw the receipt away. Alternatively, you can click on this and you can select a file, a PDF, if someone sent you an invoice via email. There's another useful feature, which is the repeat function. So if you wanted to enter in, for example, rent, and you knew it was going to happen every month, then you can have a repeating function here, and you can select the frequency and when do you want the entries to end. Another example is if we just look at mileage, which we're calculating at 45 pence per mile. So we now enter in the units, say 78 units, and it automatically calculates the amount. I enter in notes, and it doesn't ask me for a receipt. So you've got complete flexibility to capture the costs at whatever level of detail that you wish to do so. I hope you enjoyed this, and we'll see you on the next tutorial.